here. And just to keep on the same line, we are going to talk about some work that's done in SharePoint. How many people here in the room works with SharePoint? Can I see some hands? Oh, we have some victims here. So, if you don't, you are going to learn what is that about. And our next presenter is going to be Lakshmi Ramaseshan. She's from DTS. She's presenting in place of Alan Ibach. And Lakshmi is a senior developer and project manager. Did I say that right? And she's going to walk us through the routes of the adventures with SharePoint. Lakshmi, you're on. 5 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks to Alan, I'm thrown in here all totally this morning. So I'm going to take you on a ride, the adventures of SharePoint. So many of us are technologists, and we basically like geeky things. And we basically like to work with complex items. So in our toolbox, we have we love complex tools. Put it all into a box right there, and it's got gears and all the complex workings, and you can't figure it out, but you love it because you're geeky. But what do other people think about it? I mean, that's how SharePoint is. But if you had to compare it to, this is what you like. You like complexity, but that's not everybody. That's us, because that's what we do every day. That's our bread and butter. But what do the general users think? And that's what we build systems for. We build systems for people to use and kind of navigate through easily. So how would they see SharePoint or a CMS? What do they think? It's fairly complex. If you think about building a geoaddressing model in SharePoint, this is what it would look like. The kind of the workflow behind the scenes. You don't see all this at the end, but this is what you would start with. You'd select all the desired features from the toolbox that you're given in SharePoint. You'd build all these complex workflows, and finally pick the pieces you want. Then you build a site plan, because you have to figure out how things are going to flow from one point to another. And this is what it would look like. So this is all the work that goes behind the scenes in building a SharePoint application. Then it comes to a server architecture where you got to figure out how your servers are going to communicate and how the application is going to work. And then how do you log in? So you need a login process. So you need to figure out how it connects to Active Directory or some LDAP service that you're using. And finally, build your workflow for your application, because now you need to deliver this to the client. And that looks fairly complex, right? At the end of which you have a 700-page starter kit. Are you kidding me? I mean, this is for somebody to kind of build an application on the fly, but that's not how it works. At the end of which you build a system model, and you kind of pray that it all is going to work. And then finally, your last option is a Hail Mary pass, and for all those football lovers, you probably know what this is. That's kind of your last option, saying, all right, I'm just going to connect all these points and see if it fits together. But what does Apple or Google think? Apple thinks it's like a one-touch button, and that's why you love your iPod. Google has one text box and a find button, and that's why it's easy for everyone to use. But not SharePoint. No one ever gets confused when using Google, because you type in your search criteria and click Find Search. No questions there. That's how easy you want to make it. But what about a SharePoint application? You've got a million text boxes and a million buttons and no idea what the user should do next. So at the end of which, most SharePoint sites are kind of like a kitchen sink, where all kinds of tools are thrown in together. Not to say that it's bad, but you have a lot of tools to work with and a lot to put together to make sense into an application. So this is kind of your kitchen sink. Most geospatial applications are nothing but lots of data around which you build complex tools and build an application on top of it. So this is what your toolbox looks like, and then you build kind of your geospatial application where you have a map and a geoaddressing model. At the end of which it looks like a flight deck plan, because this is what your interface looks like. But that's not how it should look. It should look as easy as an iPod or the Google interface. At the end of which, this comes to a famous quote that everybody talks about. Don't build a custom app, just use SharePoint. But nobody knows how much work goes behind building a SharePoint application. So at the end of the day, we must accept that we like complexity, but at the end of the day, there's no stupid users. If people can't use your application, it's not an adequate design. That's what it comes to. And we must understand that complexity is not the name of the game. It's keeping it simple, stupid is what we should do. And I know it's called simple, stupid, but there's a reason for that. Because if you look at the MP3 player on the left-hand side and you look at the iPod, which one are you going to use? The reason is simple. So at the end of the day, if you looked at what your workflow for your application looked like, this is what SharePoint would do. It would finally all come together, but it would be complicated. But this is what you want it to do. You want it to be simple, and you want it to be easy to use. So I'm not for all the SharePoint users. This is not a stab on SharePoint. All it boils down to is picking the right tools for the right job. So SharePoint is good. It's a good tool. It's a good platform. But what it's important for is document management and versioning. It's not an application. You still need to do a lot of work to get it there.
Thank you.